going to do this one with video, and then I'm going to do the Q&A just with audio, if it's okay with you guys.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Do I see a motorway sign behind you?
Yeah, I'm in Blythe Services in Nottingham.
Oh, right. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm just about to meet my son, who's giving me his dog. Oh, you don't need to understand the trauma of being a grandfather and
I understand that. Yeah. Which only leads on from the trauma of being a father.
Yeah, it never goes away.
No, absolutely not. Never, ever. But there you are. Hello, Nadia. Nice to see you.
Hello. Hello. Good to see you all.
You got involved. Aaron, you're there. You're there in the shadows. No, you're all right. You're actually quite clear.
Perfect.
Hello again, Kevin. You're muted, my friend. Bruce, can you unlock Mr. Doughty? There you are. You should be able to unmute yourself now, Kevin.
I see. All done.
Yeah. And Mr. Tiller is locked. Now you should be able to go now as well, Grant.
I don't think I'm in on this session, but I can chip in if you want me to.
Oh, I can't remember. Are you in on this or not?
I'm here if needed.
Well, everybody seemed to really enjoy the last session, Kevin, the one before lunch.
Good.
Yeah, it seemed it was generally thought of quite fun and vigorous and enjoyable. So it's an interesting stuff. Bear with me a second. Bear with me a second, guys. I still only just starting, so we'll give it a second. We've had good attendance so far as well. Right. Okay, guys, I think the time is popping on. More people will be joining, probably coming back after lunch. So we'll just crack on for now, and start by welcoming our guest panelists, Roy Sandbach, Professor Roy Sandbach, I should say, Dr. Kevin Doughty, Nadia Smith, and Aaron Edwards, and a new arrivee, Mr. Grant Tiller, from Yorbl, a last-minute attendee, a last-minute panelist. Okay, this session is an interesting follow-on from our last session, which was about looking at how we protect the future, and how software or hardware which is the right way forward in terms of digital. I think we can all see or all agree that behind all of these issues around software and hardware and how this whole system works is the question of data. And probably in reality, it's where the real value to all of us is, in terms of the future of digital health and care. Looking at artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, predicting where people may be becoming unwell, helping people to live longer, healthier, smarter, stay out of hospitals, stay out of care homes. So I'm going to start the session with a question to Roy. Given the aging
Okay, I thought you were
population
going to leave me out there for a minute.
No, I
Tell
would
me-
never leave you out, Roy. Wouldn't
Tell
even
me,
consider it.
tell me, Peter, what's the question?
There you go. So, given the aging population issue, which we know is a, as I've said constantly throughout today, is a spectre hanging over a lot of us with this,
Yeah.
and other threats facing health and social services in particular, where do you believe health and care will be or should be in 5 to 10 years?
Oh, what a great question. I'm going to start by saying there's a crisis. Whether we think there's a crisis or not, and whether in the context of our immediate jobs we act as if there's a crisis is another question. But there is a crisis. I mean, let's just remember, between now and 2040, we'll have an extra 6 million people over 65. That's essentially 10 cities the size of Leeds. You know, people say 6 million, it's a throwaway number. No, it's not a throwaway number. It's an enormous number, and it's 10 cities the size of Leeds. And the fact is, of course, that in 2040, nearly 85–90% of the housing that will exist then is already built. Now, we cannot therefore expect the aging future of the country to happen without the support of technology. And, you know, in fact, all emphasis should be on technology, because there's not going to be something running over the horizon to save us in the context of physical infrastructure, new housing, new care systems, and all the rest. It just isn't going to happen. It's going to be people who are on this call over the next 10 years or so will be putting in place series of things which will enhance the way people live better for longer. Now, what is likely to be the centerpiece of that, and I speak here as someone engaged in the innovation space, I suppose, of aging from several different points of view. What's going to happen is that we're going to identify and want to control the issues that exist before people get into the care system. Now, I agree, and in fact, somebody yesterday in a meeting that I was in said, yeah, but we've got to deal with the people in care homes, and people who are over 85, who are digitally not capable, and yes, we do. But the fact is that between now and 2030 and now and 2040, we're going to have to deal with people like me and others in the sort of 60 to 70 to 80 years. And at that point, we're going to have to add technology to their lives that keeps them out of the care system. That includes all the technologies that relate to diagnostics, monitoring, and support that then learn how those individuals live their lives and ensure that as they become less capable, that people are alerted to that. And AI, all of the aspects that you mentioned earlier, by the way, AI, machine learning in particular, personalized machine learning is crucial. Now, on the other side is a question of data and security and safety. Now, I am not sure that people at these ages quite recognize how valuable their data is and how easy it is to access their data, but they need to be taught that. So there's a marketplace and an education piece that must be addressed over the next 10 years in order to address the big issue I described earlier.
That's a very interesting set and very relevant set of comments, Roy. Very interesting indeed. I think I'm going to move to Nadia now, because Nadia, and you're a research scientist. You're involved National Physical Laboratory. You're involved in looking at this future and trying to help guide us, I guess, to where this future should be or how to achieve it. How do you believe data is viewed now? How do you think those in health and care look at it? How important, another question, I think, and it talks to Roy's comment around data security and data ownership. How important do you feel data provenance is?
Yeah, thank you. Those are very good questions. So on the how do I feel where data is viewed now, I think we are at the beginning of it's seen as this gold mine, and everyone wants to use it and make the most of it. There's increasing number of AI tools coming out, and of course they are all based on data, but there's a key thing here, which is the reliability of data that I think needs to be taken into account, so that those tools that you use are as effective as possible, and that you can actually establish confidence in them. And I think in the healthcare context in particular, that is going to be very, very important. You need confidence in the tools that are telling you something about a person and their health status, but
Telling you about yourself.
Yes, but you need confidence in the data. And actually that does go to your other question, which is about data provenance. To provide confidence in the data, there needs to be this kind of traceable chain of where that data is coming from. There needs to be traceability of, has any analysis happened to that data? How can we ensure that this data belongs to a specific person, and how good is the quality of that data? And there is movement in that area. Like there's a lot of work going on now in that space to provide data, data quality measures, data provenance, traceability, the metadata associated to that data.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a rapidly evolving field, but there needs to be in healthcare in particular, there needs to be, completely agree with what Roy was saying, there needs to be an educational piece as well. So, and it's bringing the population, if you like, to trust these data tools and to be able to see the benefits of using their data for their own good.
That's interesting comments. I mean, this conversation we've had, but I look at it myself and think that maybe the need for education is more about educating the me's in this world. I'm invested in this. I'm turned 60 last year. You notice I'm not saying I'm turning 61 this year, but turned 60 last year. So I'm there. I'm part of the new old, and I want to, and I can testify to the fact that as you age, and I'm sure there's going to be some nods, that fear starts to creep in. That thought that you were completely immortal when you're 20, 30, 40, 50 starts to erode and starts to back off. And anything that can help assure me that I am going to enjoy my later years, live it healthily, live it effectively, is I'm going to embrace, absolutely embrace. And I'm probably slightly different than the norm at my age, is that I've grown up with data. I've been in IT and technology for years. But what's your thoughts on this, Roy? I mean, Kevin, sorry. What do you feel this is moving towards? Where should it move?
I think it's moving quickly, and I think it's moving in a somewhat uncontrolled manner. I have real fears about that control. There's a proliferation of activity monitoring and IoT systems that can monitor our lives, our environments, our interactions, our use of appliances or whatever. When I say a proliferation, I have been looking at 37 UK produced systems. Very little to differentiate them. All the suppliers are saying we are better at using the data. But at the end of the day, it's the individual's data. They have a big say in it. There needs to be a minimum data set, of course, but we really need a bigger appreciation of ethics and consent. I have this real worry that there are groups like us who understand what can be done, what it means, the prediction that we may be in the early stages of dementia, the prediction that we might fall over the next few months. All good and easy stuff, but what do we do about the impact? Are we going to do anything about it? Are we going to respond positively? And that's us. What about the other groups, the ones who can't give informed consent, those who I suppose social care services have a duty of care to represent. We might even impose on them monitoring systems to keep them safe. But actually, do they understand some of the consequences? And some of them are quite simple. An environmental system that's looking at temperature, humidity, it'll keep our property, well, tell the landlord that we've got damp or whatever, but it'll also tell the landlord that it's the level of carbon dioxide is high, and therefore we're not living alone. It could be someone cuckooing in our property, but it could be we have overnight guests when social care doesn't believe that we have any sort of family or friend support. So I think we've got to introduce some form of limits. Actually, what we need is a charter or a manifesto that really embraces all this. And that's part of that education that Roy is talking about.
I think you're absolutely right. I think, to be fair, that's data. Whether it's through Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, we are all experiencing right now the issues around this data. And I know I can see Roy wants to get in on this, but I'm going to ask Aaron first. Aaron, you're at the sharp end, so to speak. You're effectively working with Telecare Cardiff. You're looking at systems. How much are you looking? First of all, does this, what's been said so far, does that play to what you're thinking, and how does it work with what you're thinking, and how much are you guys looking at data and looking at the possibility of what your new telecare or future telecare systems, health and care systems, will be able to do compared to what the current batch do?
Yeah, it's been somewhat troubling looking at the sort of the way that the market is developed, or especially the leads within the market is developed, because it just looks as though they've taken their analog piece of kit, dipped it in white paint, and then said, here it is, it's digital now, crack on. So from our perspective, there's a lot more work that's required from the likes of me and my business analysts to establish a consistent benefit realization model that befits what telecare and what the wider provision of tech should be. Just to put some context behind it, because there's been some really good points made, especially Peter, about this terminology, the new old. Well, in Cardiff, we've got roughly 32% of people who actually live in Cardiff come through to us. So it's quite a high take-up, individuals, over the age of 85, 33% of them come through to us. That number drops down to 10% when you go between 75 to 84, and 2.6% between 65 and 74. So for me, there's a huge sort of gap between those potentially in their 50s and 60s who are perfectly capable of monitoring their own health and well-being via a wearable or environmentals, and then needing telecare. So telecare is that hard backstop, it's that reactionary level of care supplemented by technologies and services that come about as a consequence of offering reactionary tech. But there's a massive bit in between. So what we're looking to do in January when we move directorates is reinvest some money that we're going to get by joining an integrated health and social care service, which has been music to my ears because I've been pushing for a couple of years. It's starting to bring in an element of telecoaching. So another new sort of terminology you might not be familiar with, but the telecoaching element would just empower individuals to take stock of their own health and well-being. So it doesn't necessarily need to be monitored by me and my team. It can be monitored via themselves, and that's ultimately what we want to try and push. And then when it gets to a point that they might, they sort of move down that kind of dependency sort of scale, they're already digitally literate, they're already competent, they understand, they've got confidence in the data being shared. And because I just think there is that bit of a gap. You've got people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, I don't wish to generalize with age, but very au fait, they've got smartphones, they've got smart watches, and they're taking stock of their own sleep pattern, obsessed with their REM sleep, deep sleep and all that. But there's that kind of bit in between before you get to what you would consider to be a telecare customer, as we know, predominantly sort of 75 plus. So I think we're kind of missing a trick there. So that's that's just my take on that in Cardiff.
I think that's absolutely relevant. And as I said to Nadia in a conversation the other day, I see telecare devices as, I don't like the word telecare device. I don't like the word dispersed alarm device. It's a window into somebody's life. And we as service providers, care providers, should see the opportunity that presents. And I think, that's another conversation. I'm going to ask Grant in a minute some bit of techie questions about this side of things. But Roy, you've got a hand up and a comment you'd like to, or something you'd like to.
Just a couple of things on from the point of view of Aaron's comment and Nadia's commentary. Certainly, on Aaron's comment, it's incredible, Aaron, how people think that the over 65 community is somehow a homogeneous group. There's me at 67 and there's my mother at 92, and we both live independently, interestingly, at home, but we have different needs. And to your point, there's a sort of sense in government often that this group all needs telecare and all needs care, and social care needs to intervene. And this is just not true. And in fact, it's so not true that it has to be not true, because over the next 20 years, that group of 60 to 75s are going to be moving through to a point where we want to delay their care engagement with people like you, frankly, and care homes. So we've just got to think of these as target communities. To Nadia's point, I'm going to encourage you all to take, you may already have done this, by the way, and I'm sure a lot of you will have done this, to look at the ONS review of internet usage from 2020. It is quite interesting to see the absolute cliff that exists with respect to understanding data provenance and data issues, if you like, or personal data issues that exist between the younger community and those who are over 65. There's a great deal less knowledge of the potential misuse of data in the older community than there is in the younger community. That has to be dealt with. And I encourage you to look at that. There's some fantastic numbers in that study, by the way, which might change a few perceptions.
Perhaps you could send me a link on that, Roy, and we'll get it posted up on the site for people.
Do that. I'm not sure very many people will have necessarily had the time or indeed the energy to look at it over the pandemic period. That's all. Anyway,
yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
No worries. I've got this, and I suppose one of the reasons I got into this market, this business, and we developed Yorbl. I've got this vision, and I had two nannies, of course, like everybody else, but Granny Taylor was quite an interesting old lady. She's gone now, God bless her, but she suffered from dementia, and when Granny would go into, if she went into the doctors, because she fought very hard, because she was an independent woman, been through 2 wars, etc., etc. And she'd go into the doctor, and Granny Taylor would sit down and say to the doctor, Doctor, I've had a turn. I've had a bit of a turn. And the doctor would then spend the rest of his time trying to make a diagnosis, trying to eke out of her relevant information. And I think we can all guarantee that there's probably hundreds of thousands of millions of cases across not just the world, but not just the UK, but the world, where diagnoses have been missed, not because of somebody's incompetence at all, but because of the information available. That doctor would normally go to an old paper record or an old PC-based system that will literally only have the information that up to and including the last time Granny Taylor interacted with him or the NHS. Can you imagine the difference of pushing a button and saying, well, actually, Granny, your pulse rate's been up and down like a yo-yo for the last month, and your blood pressure's been steadily on the rise, and actually you're not actually sleeping very well, are you? You're getting up 2 or 3 times in the night, and you're also not getting up in your normal time in the morning. Can you imagine the impact that data would have on people's well-being and health, both predictively and analytically? Grant, how can we provide that data? How, with the systems we're people like us are developing, how can we provide that data? What are we doing to give that data to the people who need it?
Yeah, I think we've got a very good opportunity to do that, and as we move from the analog systems that we've got installed across the country today to something that's digitally led, it gives us more scope for collecting and collating that data and performing all of the kind of BI and analyst function on it in the future. I think one of the issues we have got is, as we've all referenced already in this session, is getting people to understand the value of that data. And I had a conversation recently with my dad. I wouldn't say he's a complete technophobe, but he's on the edge of being dangerous with a computer. And he doesn't understand the likes of Facebook and groups and forums and stuff. And my explanation to him was actually, at this point, you are the product. What's around you, the data that's around you, is what everyone is providing you with services like Facebook for. If you get it into your head that you're also getting value back in return for it, then maybe you can get an understanding that giving up access to your personal data has got some kind of value. He won't go anywhere near a Tesco's club card because he hates the fact that they know more about him than he does. Well, he's giving up the opportunity of getting a discount for his groceries.
Well,
He's giving up the convenience of them sending him special offers for something that he's bought every week for the last 10 years. There is something that people get back in exchange for giving up or allowing access to their data. And I think that's something not only we need to do as an industry, but it's something that needs to be government-led moving forwards. They need to really impress on everyone that people are getting something back for all this data access they're giving up. And yes, we're all, not only as an industry, but as a country, we're trying to collate it and centralize it and, do useful things with it. But we need to really drum into people that there is value that they're getting in return. And we need to do something about it because, with the COVID situation, the pots of cash that the government had to do projects like this have completely disappeared. They've all been used up, and that situation is going to be like it for the next couple of years. A lot of the funding that was put aside for, housing, social care, new initiatives, it's all going to be postponed because there is no spare money anymore. So we need to be more creative, and I think digital solutions allow us to have that creativity.
Yeah, it certainly enables us to be fleet of foot and to implement changes that you just can't do at pace with hardware-based solutions. Kevin, you've got something to say.
I think we're all aware of all the different sources of data, the silos, if you like. We know what Google has on us. We know what Amazon has. We know what the Tesco Club Card has. What's really needed, of course, is trust in a central source where, and this to me is the role of the future telecare service, Aaron. You should be the trusted sharer of data where the extreme analytics can be performed and where the necessary, if you like, non-commercial advice can be delivered back to service users rather than everyone else has an angle. So Tesco uses your data because they know how to sell things to you. And the same is true of Amazon and all the other big corporations. I think the role of the local authority or even the health board approach should be the honest broker who deals with all the data and therefore has a different set of analytical tools, a different sort of dashboard that can be shared with us, but also we give permission that it be shared with our GP perhaps, and only if our self-care capability isn't enough should it then go to social care, who will be the ones whose services we may need when we reach that extreme age, but hopefully we don't because we're self-caring.
I think you're right, Kevin. There's a strong, angle to say, the likes of NHS and digital and plus, should they be providing the infrastructure, making that available to, to us to put that data in against patient records. And everyone then subsequently has access to the data, providing it's been authorized and providing there's good reason to then subsequently do, run the algorithms, run the analysis, and use that in turn to provide better quality of care.
I think they're all relevant points. I think for me, one of the you talk about a central point for this data. Well, one of the central points is the ARC or alarm receiving centre platform providers. And one of the bugbears I have there is that the traditional providers of those are also wrapped up with the provision of hardware solutions as well, and therefore they're not looking at perhaps at the level of interoperability they should do. I've also had statements and questions from other potential customers, other people sitting in your chair, Aaron, for other authorities around the UK, stating, well, hold on a minute, these guys have had possession of very relevant data for decades. Why aren't they sharing it? Why won't they share it? If you, and I'm not looking to plug a partner, but I'm going to anyway, if you look at the way UMO are approaching this, they're having nothing whatsoever to do with any hardware, totally hardware agnostic, and their digital cloud-based system is being built with that data in mind, with that data sharing and the way to look at it. Now, if there was a set of standards and the alarm receiving centres could stick to those standards, and therefore that's where your data provenance comes from, Nadia, I think it's a big thing. Now I'm going to take, we've got officially 1 minute left. We can probably go a little minute because this is a very interesting subject, but a last one from Nadia.
Thanks. Yeah, no, just really quickly, on the note of data ethics and the kind of centralized effort that's being put in, I was just wanted to flag, if just to make sure people were aware of initiatives such as the Ada Lovelace Institute, where they're working on the ethics around data sharing and how people feel about that, and what, you know, they do a lot of work on interviewing citizens to see what the best way to move forward is, that is equal and fair for everyone, and the use of people data. Yeah, just to flag that one up. But yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. It's been a very interesting session yet again. I have to say, very pleased with the way things are going today, and it's because good people sitting there talking about the right things that we need to talk about, and hopefully the delegates are getting some real benefit out of that. I think the takeaway from this session is that just how important data is, equally just how important data provenance is, and finally, take time to look at the right systems. Don't get held back. Don't be frightened to look at something. Look at the systems that can future-proof for you. That data is going to be so important going forward, and you've got to be able to get at it, to use it, and it will benefit us all. But thank you very much indeed for your time, guys, and for everybody attending. The next session is the Q&A, which starts at 1:45 p.m. That should be interesting. We've got a bunch of questions in already, and see you there. So if you log out of this particular session and go to 5 minutes, go to the Q&A session.
That's
we'll see you there.
paying for the future next, Peter.
Oh, sorry, paying for the future.
Yep.
I do apologise. I'm going mad.
Funding.
Paying for the future. I'm ahead of myself. What can I say? So I'll take that back. Paying for the future.
Okay.
See you there. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
See you all.
See you.
Hello, everyone. Just to let you know, this meeting has now come to a close. Next one is Paying for the Future, which you should be able to join via Canopy. Thank you all very much for attending, and I'm now going to close this session up. Thank you.